So what was my journey like to become a RN? Well, if you watched my other video, you know that I was a licensed practical nurse first. I worked as a licensed practical nurse for 5 years before I decided to go back and get my RN. I always knew I wanted to be an RN, but I had to make a detour, had to go through the back door to become a licensed practical nurse. When I became a licensed practical nurse, I was able to transition into an RN program very easily, right? I was already a practicing nurse. So for me to transition into an RN program, and become an RN, I had to enroll into a 9-month transition program and complete that. So as an LPN, I enrolled, and I think the hardest thing for me as a practicing LPN, a practicing nurse, is going back to school and realizing that how you play, or how you practice rather, as a nurse does not transition to what the school is looking for, right? At the school level, you have all the tools, right? It's like back to NCLEX once again. You have all the tools, you have all the skills, you have everything that you need at the bedside. But we know as an LPN practicing in long-term care, that's not always the case. So for me, I had to, in a sense, kind of tone it down, right? I knew what the answer was, but for the test, it wasn't asking me all the way up here. I knew what the end result was. It was asking me the most basic and competent way. So for me, I didn't struggle in LPN to RN school, but I did have to tone it down and rethink the way that I approached the questions. I enjoyed my transition from LPN to RN, and I would do it again and again and again, and I would follow the same steps I did to become a nurse. Become an LPN first, and then get my RN after. I would do it again and again. But as I said in my last video, if you're on the fence about whether you need to become an LPN or RN, if you have both choices, become an RN. But if you don't, there's no shade in becoming a licensed practical nurse. I became a licensed practical nurse when I was 21. I am 33 now, and I would do it again and again and again, because at 21, I was able to come out of school with a career. If I wanted to stay at LPN, I could have stayed in LPN. The reason why I went back to become an RN is because I wanted just a tad bit more of opportunities, right? I think that as you advance your knowledge, you start to gain additional credibility, and people relate to those two letters of an RN versus an LPN. Doesn't mean you don't know the same information, doesn't mean anything else. But I think that from a standpoint, and for me, a person who's done it, it added a level of credibility and allowed me to enter into roles that I could never do as an LPN. Could I be a leader as an LPN? Was I a leader as an LPN? All day long. I was a charge nurse, assistant director of nursing. But I could never get that title as director of nursing, never move up into a role of a C-suite executive and be a CNO if I was an LPN. It just doesn't work that way. So, no shade to anyone who is an RPN, a 2-year RN, 4-year RN, or MSN. There's no shade. For my nurses, you have to choose what's best for you, and for the people going into nursing, you have to do what's best for you. So don't let anybody distract you or tell you you should do this or that. Do what's best for you. Your healthcare consultant.